All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, coming your way after another big weekend of spring games. Plenty coming from the SEC with LSU on the field tonight, Tennessee this afternoon, along with Georgia, the second game of a doubleheader on ESPN, with Alabama, of course, being the first game, Mississippi State all in action. But let's focus on the Crimson Tide with Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. You can join him on his show weekdays, Monday through Friday, the way it is. Fox 97.9, 2 to 4 Central Time. All right, Stephen. Of course, we would love to dive into your analysis here. I watched most of the game, actually just rewatched the first half. Nick Saban coming off the field following a Mac Jones sack and then a missed field goal. Wasn't too pleased with that sequence, but your thoughts first and foremost about what's going to be talked about more than anything, Stephen. You know what it is. It's specifically Jalen Hurts and the quarterback play.
Well, in this game, Mark, in the quarterback situation between Jalen Hurts and Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa, we all know did not play with that injury to his left hand, his throwing hand. And this was the one opportunity for Jalen to really close the gap in the passing game. This was his one chance to kind of go out there and show fans how much he's improved, how much he can really stretch the field, showcase a big-time arm, and really use the tools that Dan Enos, as the quarterback coach, has been given. And in the 8-day game, Jalen Hurts really struggled. I know the numbers, 19 for 35, 195 yards, looks decent, but he only completed 51.4%. And of that completion percentage, much of that was geared to him dumping the ball to running backs and the guys like Najee Harris, Damian Harris, and Brian Robinson, and those guys doing the most of the work for him. Jalen had maybe one or two passes that stretched the field, including one to Devonta Smith, which was just about in double coverage. Smith did a great job of high pointing the football, coming down with the reception, but struggling Jalen Hurts in this game. You saw a lot of things that he did the last 2 years. If option number one is not there, he rolls to the right, throws the ball away, or tries to run, not stepping up in the pocket and using the entire field, as opposed to Mac Jones, who, yes, he's the third quarterback in this situation, but never doubt, never underestimate the third quarterback in this situation, because that's the guy that's going to have the most fun. And boy, did Mac Jones have him some fun. 23 of 35 passing, 289 yards, completed 66%. He had moments where he looked like baby A.J. McCarron out there, throwing the football, had a couple of darts downfield to wide receivers, had three passes to Xavier Marks, Kedrick James, the tight end, then also there was one Kedrick James, Xavier Marks, and there was one more here to Shadarius Towson, and there it is. He had three passes of 20-plus yards. He was able to really stretch the field, hit guys in stride, stepping up in the pocket. Even on his incompletions, you can tell where he really wanted to stretch the ball, stretch the field, in which he did. If he took a little bit off the ball on his pass to Mac Hereford, that's probably Jones' third touchdown pass of the game. But seeing his toughness, his competitiveness, his leadership, got a chance to talk with Alabama defensive end Raekwon Davis after the game, and Raekwon just kind of lit up and said, hey, we like the way this kid, Mac Jones, throws the football. I mean, he's a gamer. He's a real-life leader on the field. Deontay Thompson, I kind of had some fun with him, the Alabama defensive back, about Mac Jones. He basically said, look, Steve, I wasn't trying to eat pork and beans for a third straight year, so we told Mac Jones, you're going to have to go out there and ball out so we can finally get this steak. And the kid went out there and got his team that steak. Team Crimson getting the 24-14 win. And you're just excited for a guy that comes in knowing that, I got two guys ahead of me. Let me just learn. Let me just get my body in order. But it's the third guy in a quarterback situation that goes out there and has the biggest day.
We are talking Alabama football with the 8-day game in the books. And as Stephen just outlined, Crimson wins at 24-14. That means nothing to us. means nothing to the Alabama players. That means something to the Alabama players, not the fans. It means the difference between eating high off the hog and eating those pork and beans. So let's get to Jalen Hurts. I'm going to back you up just a little bit because you touched upon some very interesting things with Jalen Hurts. There was one particular play in the first half in which, had this been a live game against a real opponent, what Jalen Hurts did was see a huge gap in front of him and dismiss the passing game and take that gap and do what he does best and take off and run for 20 or 25 yards before somebody touched him down. He may have run for 30 or 35 yards if it would have been a tackle game. Nick Saban, though, caught on the mic of either Kirk Herbstreit or Joey Galloway, not necessarily happy with that decision, thinking, okay, understand we're in the spring game here, and we want to see what you have developed as a passer. We want to see you make the reads and make the throws, and he wasn't real happy with that. And you outlined it. Yes, there was some pressure on Jalen Hurts. The defensive line was pretty, I don't want to go to the extent of dominant over the first-team offensive line, but they had their way in pockets there, and he did suffer a couple drop passes. But besides that, Jalen Hurts just didn't look good. He was thrown behind receivers. He just didn't look confident throwing the ball, didn't look like he was decisive, as Mac Jones was, basically hitting that back heel and making his decision, delivering the ball.
And a lot of this has to go back to Jalen Hurts' father, Avarian Hurts. If you remember, Avarian Hurts came out to Bleacher Report on the record a couple of days before the A-Day game and using some profane language in the article, saying that Jalen messed up by allowing the quarterback situation to be open, especially after a 3 of 8 performance in the national championship game against Georgia. And then, Hurts' father comes behind that comment and says, look, if my son is not the guy, is not the starter in Alabama week 1, then he could be the biggest free agent in college football history. And when you're saying things like that in a situation where your son is trying to battle to be the number 1 guy, trying to battle to be the number 1 quarterback, I mean, keep in mind, Nick Saban has not given his hand solely over to Tua or solely over to Jalen. So Jalen had a shot to really take the spring game, perform well, do well, show fans, show teammates, most importantly, show himself and the coaching staff, but he can consistently stretch the field, throwing the football, and then you can go into the offseason thinking, well, there is some hope for Jalen Hurts. Well, there is some hope for him, possibly fending off to Tagovailoa and being the starter. But, on top of the issues with Jalen the last 2 years, being able to consistently throw the ball, and then you pile on, parental figure who, me personally, should just kept his mouth shut. Don't say anything. Let this thing play out. If you're going to say something, I would wait until the summer when there's no football being played, there's no film being studied, and during a time where a lot of guys transfer out anyway, and you can make an amicable split. But for you to sit there and say this, 2 days before the A-Day game, and then have Jalen come out and just not feeling it, just not engaged, you can look at his body language and just tell he did not want to be there. And for that to have happened, and for Mac Jones to come out here, complete 180, he wanted to be out there. He wanted to throw the football. He wanted to compete. There was a situation, Mark, after Mac Jones' second touchdown, he is A.J. McCarron-esque, pumping his fist, running down the field, high-fiving guys, chest-bumping guys. He jumps up on the back of defensive lineman Quentin Williams and walks off the field on the back of that huge defensive lineman that Quentin Williams is. So for this to be a game that Jalen Hurts needed to have to show that he can go into the offseason still in the conversation, and it's not him, but it's Mac Jones that has the big game. Very, very tough situation for Hurts to be in.
We've got Stephen M. Smith on the line from Touchdown, Alabama. You can also join him on his show, The Way It Is, Fox 97.9, 2 to 4 Central Time, weekdays, Monday through Friday. Well, Stephen, we've got a number of people on the line here. Big Poppy JT mentions here that he played in high school against Mac Jones. and just says that he's an awesome guy, awesome competitor. Also have a comment made here by Cash Boy D asking about the defensive back. So we know that the secondary was rated and will be this coming weekend by the NFL draft, headlined by Minkah Fitzpatrick. We've talked defensive backs during the offseason. Stephen, you mentioned a couple of weeks ago to me that in addition to the offensive line, that the secondary was probably where you were going to have your eyes set most of the time, first and foremost. So your thoughts about the play back there?
I thought the guys did pretty good. Now, there are some things they can work on, but I thought the guys did pretty good. Savion Smith, the junior college guy, Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. Prior to that, played his freshman ball at LSU in the Southeastern Conference. He's 6'1", 198 pounds. I did a pretty good job being physical out there, trying to shut down receivers. Trayvon Diggs had 9 tackles. He picked off Jalen Hurts, and this was a huge spring game for Trayvon Diggs. I mean, keep in mind, last year during fall camp, Trayvon Diggs was rising. He was emerging. He was frustrating guys. He had won the starting corner job at left corner in fall camp last year. And after suffering some busted coverages against Florida State and getting lost at times, that was when Levi Wallace rose up, took the cake, ate it too, and surpassed Trayvon Diggs. This time around, can Diggs hold his spot and remain at that left corner position? Because our mark in the summer, Jalen Armour-Davis comes in, Josh Jobe, Patrick Surtain Jr., 3 very talented true freshmen. And Nick Saban has already mentioned that because of you've lost 6 guys to the National Football League, expect for at least one of these young guns or a couple of these young guns coming in the summer to get some playing time. So very happy to see Trayvon Diggs out there having a good spring game. Deontay Thompson looked good, looked very composed, looked very quick, very, very comfortable, very natural in that safety position. He, along with Xavier McKinney, both did some good things. Daniel Wright had 8 tackles in the spring game, and he's a guy that if he doesn't start at safety, but I have Daniel Wright in that dime package as that dime linebacker, that 6th defensive back on the field at 6'1", closing in on that 200-pound frame there. Daniel Wright out of Boyd Anderson High School in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And then Shaheem Carter, who, in my opinion, was a better system fit at that star position last season, as opposed to Tony Brown, though. He was a hard hitter, hard thumper, a very emotionally invested guy. Shaheem Carter, the better system fit there, and he's had a pretty good spring taking on a leadership role. So secondary as a whole, to me, pretty good. Still some things to improve on, still some things that being able to take the angle away and playing the man instead of just playing with your eyes. You got to play that man. But overall, I felt the back 5 pretty good today.
All right, Stephen, we've got Big Poppy JT on the line asking about Tua's younger brother committing to the Crimson Tide. Any thoughts on that?
That came as a shock because not even Tua recognized that was going to happen today. Talia Tagovailoa committed today, coming out of Thompson High School. This is somebody that a lot of people feel like could be even better than Tua, which seeing what Tua was able to do in the national championship game in the second half against Georgia was unbelievable. But this 2019 class is shaping up to be very special with Talia, Paul Tyson, Paul Bear Bryant's great-grandson committing at Hewitt-Trussville High School in Birmingham. And then you have Pierce Quick of a 2019 offensive lineman commitment. Got a couple of defensive guys. This 2019 class is really starting to shape up. And as I mentioned this to you, Mark, on a number of occasions, this 2019 recruiting cycle, a lot of the big talent is in-state. A lot of the marquee talent in the state of Alabama, whether it's the Rivals 100, the ESPN 300, the Scout 100, whatever you want to coin it, a lot of the big-time talent is in the state of Alabama this time around. And if Alabama can lay hold on a lot of the in-state kids, this will be a big, big deal. But seeing Talia commit today to the Crimson Tide came as a shock to Tua, but not as a shock to a lot of Alabama fans.
Stephen, what about your guy, Brian Robinson? He was running tough, running physical, catching passes out of the backfield with fluidity and turning it directly upfield and making guys miss in the open field.
Brian Robinson's a dog. I mean, this is one of these guys that I self-scouted when he was in high school at Hillcrest High in Tuscaloosa. I know a lot of people compare Najee Harris to Derrick Henry because of the size of Najee Harris, 6'2", 200, 6'2", 6'3", 230 pounds. But if you watch Najee Harris's running style, he has more Eddie Lacy than Derrick Henry. The spinning, the hurdling, all the movements. When I look at Brian Robinson, that's more Derrick Henry to me. His ability to run people over, to plow through people, to burst through people, to run people on the ground. And you mentioned it, Mark, not just his carries in the backfield, but just soft hands as a pass catcher, making the catch, turning his hips, getting up and down the field, making guys miss, showing the speed that, a lot of those guys are 6'1", 6'2". It's rare for a guy that big, that strong to have quick, nimble feet. And Brian Robinson, quick, nimble feet. The guy's a dog out there, and I just enjoy seeing this kid play.
We've got Ryan Mell joining us. Ryan does a great job jumping on these live streams and giving me something to think about, wanting to hear some feedback on the Georgia spring game, which was the second portion of the ESPN doubleheader this afternoon, right after Alabama. I did not have a chance to catch the Bulldogs. I just got started on Alabama. I've taped Nebraska, Penn State, and others today, so I don't have a whole lot to say there. Ryan's telling us that the defensive line was really good. Jake Fromm had a bad day, but not a whole lot of concern there. And Justin Fields looked really good in his Georgia debut. Lamar Stevens chiming in with Alabama, stop recruiting Louisiana. No good players in that state anyway. Does that make any sense to you, Stephen?
Well, I mean, for 2019, the class is still early. The class is still young. I wouldn't be surprised if Alabama does not go down to Louisiana before this recruiting cycle ends and get some kids from that area. But that Louisiana, Texas area has been very good to Nick Saban and the Alabama program. When you look at, guys like Dylan Moses, Denzel Duvall, Kenny Bell, Eddie Lacy, Landon Collins, Tim Williams. I mean, the list goes on the amount of guys that Alabama was able to get, not just from Louisiana, but also that Texas area. So right now, no Louisiana kids right now for this 2019 class. But once again, I would not put it past Nick Saban that prior to this cycle ending, they don't at least have one kid from the Bayou State.
Lamar's hoping that you stay out of Louisiana, stay away from Louisiana, keep Nick Saban out of the Bayou there, and keep his paws off those fine Louisiana players, per capita, maybe arguably the best in the nation down there. People asking about Jalen Hurts, future past quarterback position. I'm likening it to maybe Braxton Miller's situation at Ohio State, where if he's going to make money on Sunday, maybe it's a slot receiver position for Jalen Hurts. I know we've talked about that in the past, Stephen.
It's either he's going to have to make a decision at this point, Mark, because right now, especially with Talia and Paul Tyson committing, and with the style of play that Tua Tagovailoa brings you in the passing game, and then with the performance that Mac Jones put on the day, the writing clearly on the wall for Jalen Hurts. He's got to make a decision on what he wants to do. At 6'2", 218 pounds, I could see slot receiver. I could also see maybe defensive back if you want to try that position. But if he is sold on playing quarterback, if he is firm on playing quarterback, if he's dead center on playing quarterback, which he and his father, Avarian Hurts, both are, then you're going to have to figure that Jalen will transfer somewhere that he can play quarterback. You look at Florida Atlantic as an option under Lane Kiffin, 2016. Kiffin helped Jalen Hurts become the SEC Offensive Player of the Year, passed for 2,780 yards, 36 total touchdowns, which was a school record at the University of Alabama. You look at TCU, you look at TCU. You look at a number of different schools in Texas. Texas Tech is one. Arizona, Kevin Sumlin right now with the Arizona Wildcats, and Sumlin courted Jalen Hurts hard to Texas A&M at one point in time, but Hurts chose to come to Alabama. You even have the Houston Cougars that would not mind giving him an opportunity. So the time is now for Jalen Hurts to make his move, whether it's, do I stay at Alabama and switch positions? Do I stay at Alabama and risk being the third string quarterback behind Tua and Mac Jones? Or if I really, really, really want to be a quarterback and play at the next level, do I go ahead now in the summer and make my exit?
And of course, the conference and the specific school would have to grant the waiver for the player to transfer within the conference. You mentioned the Arizona situation. Khalil Tate, a Heisman Trophy candidate there. Kevin Sumlin will get his hands on him and be able to craft and develop his passing skills. But Brandon Dawkins was a pretty capable quarterback there at Arizona prior to getting hurt and opening the door for Khalil Tate to run for like 330 yards against Colorado and steal the job and take the Cats to a bowl game last season. But Brandon Dawkins recently transferred to Indiana. So there are options out there for Jalen Hurts at a pretty high level. Let's certainly, in comparison to what Tua showed us in the second half and in overtime, it appears to be a slam dunk. But Jalen Hurts, let's not discredit what he's able to do athletically at the quarterback position. And so many teams across the country would love to have Jalen Hurts taking snaps for them. Stephen, let's mention the punter, Skylar DeLong, taking over for J.K. Scott, one of the all-time greats there at Alabama. I know you always keep your eyes on the special teams as well.
Skylar DeLong looked comfortable out there today. He had maybe one or two kicks where he did not get them off as quickly as he would have liked to, but he looked comfortable out there. Had about 4 or 5 punts that pinned guys inside the 20. Had a couple of them that pinned guys inside the 10. So he's going to continue to grow. But right now, looked very, very comfortable out there. He's actually wearing number 10, showing the love for J.K. Scott, but Skylar DeLong looked comfortable out there. But who I was impressed with, how about Joseph Bolovis, Joe B., field goal kicker, 5 of 7 made field goals, including a couple of 40-yarders. Jeff Banks, newly hired special teams coach from Texas A&M, really doing a sound job of getting Bolovis his accuracy, his mechanics, his foot placement, all in line. I know even on the 2 he missed by an inch. He didn't miss by much at all. The wind got into one, and one he just slightly kind of pulled, but he's not missing by much at all. So when you look at that type of consistency all spring, him being able to make kicks, and you have to give a lot of that credit also to Mac Jones, who serves as a holder on special teams. Sometimes the snap can be a bit wobbly, and Mac Jones gets the snap, able to hold it down, and allows Bolovis to make the kick. But Joe B., 5 of 7 on field goals. You can't beat that.
All right, this is Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, hitting up the live stream the night of a big spring football weekend, especially in Tuscaloosa with the A-Day game, and the Crimson eating well tonight after the ball game. The steak for the Crimson jerseys, the pork and beans, as Stephen has told us, for the white after a 24-14 decision. More importantly, 6 weeks basically off of the players. Of course, workouts and so forth ensue, but 6 weeks off. And Stephen, what is Nick Saban and staff going to be thinking about? What's going to be weighing on their minds, I think, not just concerning this particular game, because I think we ride and rest too much on the spring game, but because, of course, everybody can see it. It's on TV. But they saw 2 or 3 other scrimmages that were just as hotly contested within the confines of practice, and obviously had 15 sessions. So based on the totality of spring practice and what you've been able to gather, what do you think is weighing on the minds of Nick Saban and his staff more than anything, and will be over the next 6 weeks?
I think the main thing is number one, going ahead, solidify the quarterback. Go ahead, solidify that thing right now. I think that's the main thing. Number two, after that, is getting the best five guys on the field for the offensive line. This is a very talented offensive line. Probably could be the best front group that Brent Key has ever worked with as he enters his third year as the O-line coach coming from Central Florida. So getting the best five guys on the offensive line. And then number three, of a secondary. Like I mentioned, you got three talented freshmen coming in the summer. Jalen Armour-Davis, Josh Jobe, Patrick Surtain Jr., working those guys in and building you a very cohesive secondary. And then last but not least, if I have to give a fourth one, the thing that Nick Saban will be focusing on is trying to avoid the injury bug as much as you can. Because last year had a number of guys go down. I know injuries are inevitable. They're part of the game. But trying to find a way to not get hurt this next season.
All right, Stephen. Dylan Moses, as a freshman, contributed well down the stretch. 30 total tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. We have somebody on the line asking about Dylan Moses. Was there anything that you caught from him? Obviously, in the spring games, it's difficult to get a read on everyone because there's so many players shuffling in and out. But anything on Dylan Moses for you?
Dissected plays very well. He flew to the football, ran to the flow of the ball, dissected plays well. Made some big-time tackles in space on running backs, and he and Mac Wilson play off each other very well. I know Nick Saban talked about how both guys need to grow in the energy and the consistency and showing that leadership, but as far as the athletic talent, the instincts, being able to flow to the football, dissect the play, read and react, Dylan Moses is one of the best in the game, and he went out there today and played well. Made some tackles in space, dissected the play, but he flies to the football.
All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football on a big spring weekend across college football, just naming some of the schools that went to battle today against each other. You had Mississippi State, Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, Georgia, and Alabama out of the SEC. Texas, of course, out of the Big 12. I've got a number of people wanting some Texas information out of Austin, Penn State, and Nebraska out of the Big 10 as well. We've got Stephen M. Smith on the line talking Alabama football. I don't know if you've had a chance to really hone in on the draft process, but just in case, Stephen, of course, the big draft weekend coming up starting on Thursday night. Your current thoughts about Minkah Fitzpatrick and company and where some of them may slot and who may be moving and shaking here with a few days left before the NFL draft?
I still think Minkah Fitzpatrick's a top 10 pick. I'm looking in between picks 5 and 10. Denver Broncos could use a corner after losing Aqib Talib. I look at the San Francisco 49ers. They could definitely use a high-end safety. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers also. So I look at those three teams. Denver at the 5th pick. San Francisco at the 9th pick. I believe Tampa Bay has the 7th overall pick. So Minkah definitely top 10. Calvin Ridley, I see him in the top 20. I look at the Dallas Cowboys. Excuse me. I believe have pick number 19 in the first round, if I'm not mistaken. The Cowboys just letting go of Dez Bryant and Calvin Ridley, one of the better guys in creating separation. Somebody that Dak Prescott can get the ball to on a slant or on a quick route, and Calvin Ridley can take it the distance. When I look at somebody like Daron Payne, I see him in the first round, bottom portion of the first round. I would love for the Atlanta Falcons at pick 26 to get Daron Payne, seeing how they lost Dontari Poe to the Carolina Panthers. And if you have a defensive front with Vic Beasley, Daron Payne, and Grady Jarrett, that's a very nasty, very dominant defensive front right there. So I would like that was to happen. Rashaan Evans, also a first-round guy. The Pittsburgh Steelers like him. The Tennessee Titans like him. But he'll be more so toward the bottom of that first round also. And if a team was to trade back, or if the New England Patriots really value their secondary, then somebody late in that first round should get Ronnie Harrison at safety. I mean, I understand Ronnie Harrison and Minkah Fitzpatrick both came together in the 2015 signing class, and Minkah gets all the love. He gets the accolades, the appreciation, and which he deserves, and don't get me wrong. But Ronnie Harrison is a hard-hitting, ball-hawking, instinctive, passionate playing safety. And if I'm the New England Patriots, especially with Devin McCourty and Patrick Chung, both getting up there in age, both guys 32 years old. And then you've got Malcolm Butler, who recently left you to go to the Tennessee Titans. So Ronnie Harrison, somebody, at least, if not the Patriots, at pick 31, somebody could trade back in the first round to get him. But Minkah Fitzpatrick, Daron Payne, Rashaan Evans, Calvin Ridley, I think all of those guys are solid first-round picks.
Yeah, Minkah, we've got some folks thinking going to San Francisco. I believe they have the 9th overall pick. Tampa Bay also could be a destination for Minkah, as you mentioned. Lamar Stevens, our guy from Louisiana, repping the Bayou area, of course, mentions here with a little biblical humor that how can his name be Moses when he's Judas? Of course, leaving Baton Rouge to go play for the Crimson Tide.
Recruiting is something serious, man.
Oh, yeah.
Recruiting is something serious, but I mean, that's what happens, man. That's what happens. But, Dylan Moses, hopefully he can continue to grow and play well. And not just him. A lot of Alabama fans are waiting for the arrival of Ben Davis as far as his play on the field. This was a guy that was a 5-star out of Gordo High School in Tuscaloosa. I mean, he's been working well. He's been working hard. He's been improving, just finally starting to get the attention to detail down. So hopefully this will be the season that the game time light bulb comes on for Ben Davis, and we can see what he's about.
All right, Stephen, unless somebody else gives us something else to kick around before I let you go, any preliminary thoughts on this year's Crimson Tide team, projecting if they have the expected season they do as individuals this fall, how somebody may place in the NFL draft next year? Who are the best candidates to move on to the next level at a high position in the draft?
In terms of next year, I look at Raekwon Davis, defensive end, Raekwon Davis and Isaiah Buggs. See both of those guys definitely. Mack Wilson, see him. Deontay Thompson at that safety spot, see him. So those are just a couple of guys off the top of my head. Raekwon, Isaiah Buggs, Mack Wilson, and Deontay Thompson.
Mack Wilson, one of the keys to the stretch drive, as Alabama was really beat up at the linebacker position, and he did a tremendous job stepping up as a leader and a playmaker late in the season after the loss to Auburn, completing the sweep in the college football playoffs to win a championship number 17 for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Do we know anything about Reuben Foster in the NFL right now? What's going on with him? Somebody's asking Big Papi JT about Reuben Foster.
Well, right now, the San Francisco 49ers, everybody's still waiting the due process clause. They're still waiting on the final verdict on Reuben. As we all know, has been hit with 3 felony charges and a misdemeanor also, but 3 very hard felony charges. So if convicted, can face up to 11 years in prison. But San Fran keeping him on the roster due to they're trying to wait out the full due process. Should charges be dropped? Should he be not convicted? I think whether he is or he's not convicted, it's going to be hard for San Fran to keep him on the roster just due to all the PR backlash it could suffer. But at the same time, San Fran had a similar situation that happened to it last year with a player, and they dismissed that player. And after they dismissed him, that they kind of felt like, hey, we should have waited a bit longer because the guy's charges got dropped, his case got dropped, and San Fran probably thinking if we would have held on to him a bit longer, probably could have been a great player for us. So they're waiting on the full due process to finish out on Reuben Foster, but right now, nothing yet.
On the line with Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama, Got to join him on his show, Fox 97.9, The Way It Is, Monday through Friday, 2 to 4 Central Time. Of course, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please join me and my many contributors like Stephen M. Smith right here. We couldn't do it without Stephen and the like, covering the SEC and all the Power 5 conferences like nobody else out there. If you want to listen to the audio, you go to Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, or iTunes and search Mark Rogers TV. Otherwise, subscribe right here to Mark Rogers TV. All right, Stephen, we appreciate you do the heavy lifting after another A-Day game. We've had you on a number of times after these, and now it's all setting us up for 2018 in that first week of August after media days. So when the boys hit the field and we get some more reports out of Tuscaloosa, and of course we'll squeeze you dry for some more analysis before then.
Looking forward to it, man.